Closing in on the halfway mark for the 2024 Lamborghini Super Trofeo here at Watkins Glen International, and typical summertime weather here in the Finger Lakes area of New York State. Showers all around. We may get in a dry one here for race number 1 of the weekend for Lamborghini Super Trofeo, but it is going to be close. We'll have to see what Mother Nature has in store. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Brian Sill, along with Jeremy Shaw. Watkins Glen International, such a historic place. Been racing here for decades. The racetrack opened in 1956. Has been through all types of changes, but what a racetrack it is. The back straight into the inner loop, some new curbing there, the outer loop, then down into the boot, down through the laces of the boot, the left-hander, then through the toe of the boot. That takes you to turn 8. Good passing opportunities there. Back onto the short course, and then a complete lap of Watkins Glen International. It is such an old school kind of racetrack. There are consequences here if you make a mistake. High-speed sections of this racetrack, fast and flowing, a lot of elevation change as well. You see the showers off to the south. We may get by. The heavy rain seems to have stayed to the south, Jeremy. That is good news as those Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2s head out onto the racetrack, 38 of them.
Yeah, on slick, hand-cooked tires. So if it does start to rain, no tread on these tires, big problems for the drivers. And if the rain does come, you've got to hope it comes sort of slowly rather than a deluge, because then it becomes, well, impossible for the drivers. But yeah, huge field of cars, 38 in total. We've got, as always here in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, 4 different classes, but the classes are all based on driver experience, basically. Everybody running exactly the same Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2. The 4 class of cars of drivers, I should say. We've got the Pro class, which is 7 contenders in this race. We also have 10 each in the Pro-Am and Am classes, and also in LB Cup, with the withdrawal, unfortunately, of Raymond Davudi, who crashed yesterday in his top racing entry. He will not be starting the races either today or tomorrow. He's done for the weekend.
See the field lined up. 4 different classes of cars, as you just talked about, or classes of drivers, I should say. The cars exactly the same. And I think that's one of the neat things about this series, Jeremy. As a relative newcomer to motorsports, you're in the same 620 plus horsepower Lamborghini that the pro drivers are, and you get to go play on the same playing field that they do. These cars, massively powerful. In fact, faster in a straight line than some of their IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship GTD counterparts. And so massive amount of horsepower, a lot of torque, and obviously one heck of a beautiful race car.
Yeah, beautiful race car, beautiful racetrack, and look at those dark clouds. They are pretty scary out there. The drivers, yeah, so some of them have tinted screens, or they have visor strips, so perhaps they see too much that's up. All they can see is forward, and that's probably a good thing, because this racetrack, as you just said, it's daunting in the dry, in a wet. Particularly with this amount of horsepower, it is really tricky. And then add to that slick tires if it becomes wet as well. Yeah, as I said before, impossible. But look, it's dry at the moment. They'll be doing 2 pace laps before we get into racing, and then off we go.
50-minute race, mandatory pit stop in the middle of it. That pit stop window will open 20 minutes into the race, close 30 minutes in. So you've got that 10-minute window in the middle, and you've got an opportunity for different driver formats, Jeremy. 2 driver format in any of the classes that you want, but single driver formats available to you if you want to do it on your own in Pro, Am, and in LB Cup. In the Pro-Am category, obviously there's a Pro and an Am in the car, but those other 3 classes you can go it on your own, but the pit stops are different.
They are, yeah. It's 120 seconds for is the mandatory time that has to be spent on pit lane for a 2-driver car. If you're driving solo, then your pit stop has to be 3 seconds longer, 123 seconds, and that is the minimum time from pit in, where there's a timing line before they come actually onto the pit lane itself, to pit exit, which is right at the end of pit lane before they rejoin the racetrack. It's that minimum time, and all these cars all have a digital readout on the dash, and they know from all the practice and qualifying sessions we've had so far this week how much time it takes to get from a standing stop in their pit stall to that pit exit line. So yeah, there's no excuse really for messing up. But if you do jump it, so to speak, if you are there faster than you should be, there will be a penalty. If you're less than a second inside, then it's just a relatively small penalty, just a small time added to your overall race time. But if it's more than a second, then the penalties get steeper and steeper.
Yeah, it ramps up and gets pretty severe right off the bat. Some new curbing here, and no, your eyes have not deceived you at the entry into the bus stop, the right-hander off the back straightaway. Your eyes have not deceived you. If you're looking at our coverage, the race clock has started, and what the officials wanted to do was make sure that all the teams and drivers had an opportunity to get those hand-cooked tires up to pressure before they attacked this new curbing. It can be relatively harsh if you get on it too much. You just want to make sure, for the safety's sake, having not run on it before, that the tires are up to pressure. If they're not, you can really compress the sidewall of a racing tire and damage it, and that's not the tire not working for you, that's you damaging the tire. So the official is really trying to help the drivers help themselves.
Yeah, safety first, and yeah, that's a pragmatic move, I think, by race control to allow that. And I think that those high curbs there, they've certainly deterred some of the corner cutting that went on there, and as a result of that, lap time have increased, so we're not getting anywhere near the lap record times. The lights are though out on the Huracan safety car. We're going to go to green very shortly. Let's have a quick look at the starting lineup. 37 cars in the field. Just look at the pole sitters in LB Cup. It's a youngster from Colombia, David Cardenas, in car number 7 for Ansimo Sports, who will start on the LB Cup pole. He's a newcomer this season. He started in the 23rd position in car number 7. In the AM class, 10th overall, an excellent qualifying run for Glenn McGee in car number 69 for Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti. In the Pro-Am class, it's John Capestro Dubetz who will start 4th for Precision Performance Motorsports in car number 46. Ahead of him on the grid are 3 Pro-Class contenders. Loris Cabarrou from France for Ansem Motorsports in car number 30, best qualifying yet for him. Gianno Torino for TR3 Racing in car number 88, and on the pole position for the 8th time in his career, the 2-time series champion for Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti in car number 1 is from Costa Rica's Danny for Marlar Polzilla.
Yeah, here we go. Gianno Torino in that bright orange number 88 outside the front row. Danny Formal in the red number 1, looking for the green. Formal knows how to win here at Watkins Glen. Did it last year, and cars already jockeying the back. Green flag flies. We are racing at Watkins Glen. Lamborghini Super Trofeo underway. Formal with a great jump in the number 1 down to turn 1, but battles ensuing behind.
Yeah, I keep my fingers crossed until they all get through the turn. It's still dry. That's great to see. And yeah, they made it through turn 1. Everybody, great stuff. Up through the Essex Centre. This is super fast as well. Really tricky part of the racetrack. The track narrows up there, and then we're on to the fastest part of the straightaway, headed towards that bus stop chicane.
Scott Huffaker having a good run there as well at the start as Formal leads into the bus stop for the first time. Even though they had those 2 pace laps, still going to take a while to get these tires up to optimum performance. And the question is, can you pounce before you get there? Huffaker now beginning to drop back a little bit. I think it was the number 30 of Cabarrou who there in 3rd. But look at this, 3 wide, down to the laces of the boot. It never works.
No, it doesn't. That was a recipe for disaster right there. I'm not sure whether it was one of the green cars that was down the inside, wasn't it? Fancy it might have been kind of 54. Yeah, I don't know. No, it probably wasn't actually. Don't know.
77 gets the brunt of it, and
it wasn't 72.
Still have one stuck there in the tire wall at the laces of the boot, and see if we can get him moving and perhaps don't have to go full course caution. But it's Scott Huffaker who had dropped back a little bit. I thought that he had a good run up towards the front, but it turned out to be Cabarrou that in a car very similarly painted, and full course caution is out because Huffaker cannot get his stranded Lamborghini out of the tire wall there at the laces of the boot.
Yeah, what a shame to start the race this way. The top 5 of the position at least is still the same.
Here you go.
Top 7 are the same.
72.
Yeah.
Was indeed the 72, Patrick Liddy, who looks down the inside, and I don't know if he didn't know that the 77, the silver and black Lamborghini, does he not see him out there? Huffaker really didn't have a lot of room to move to his right, perhaps a little bit, but I think just a really aggressive move on the opening lap by Patrick Liddy.
Yeah, I think he lost at least one position on the start there. It was number 77 car he was trying to get past. He'd started ahead of the number 77, which is driven by Jake Walker. And he was trying to make a move there. And if you're going to make a move there, particularly on the first lap, you've got to be absolutely completely alongside one there at the turning point. He wasn't.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the car is 3 wide there, Jeremy, as they come down into the laces. And like I said, the 77 to the outside, and take another look at it. See cars coming into frame. He's not there, and it's a pretty late lunge. I was gonna say, maybe he was there and thought that he owned that piece of property, but it was a pretty late lunge by Liddy, in my opinion, and just gets into the back of Huffaker, and that takes the 77 with him.
Yeah, and I think Pat, he's a great guy. He's a real hard worker. And he normally shares this car with Blake McDonald, who unfortunately this weekend isn't here. Well, I say unfortunately, he's actually racing out on the West Coast. He's pursuing another championship in the another championship, and so he's not here this weekend. So given the opportunity for Patrick to drive solo, and look, Patrick Liddy, he could see those 2 cars that were dicing for position right ahead of him as he went down the hill towards turn 6. So he knew there were 2 cars there, and he still stuffed it in. I'm sorry, but I'm going to put that one on Patrick Liddy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, and a good race car driver, second place finishes in the Pro-Am category, as you said, with Blake McDonald in the opening 2 rounds at Sebring, and then had to move to the Pro category because he was by himself, as you said, as McDonald was not able to be there, but he was on pole at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in race number 1 there. So Liddy certainly knows how to get the job done. But Jeremy, you've driven race cars, and you see something and it looks like a good idea, and then by the time you've decided that it's not such a good idea, it's too late and you can't fix it.
It's too late, as he wraps around. And look, he's generally fast, and I actually was chatting to him earlier on today, and Patrick Liddy, he just said they missed the setup of the Forte racing entries in qualifying, so he qualified farther back than he had hoped, desired and expected back in 11th, and he fell back at least 1 position at the start. So it just kind of compounded. There's a new engineer for the team who's working with them this weekend from the Bond Duel team who runs these cars in Europe. He's working particularly with Alex Prema and in the number 70 car who's back in the series this weekend. But they are sharing information, of course, but the setup changes didn't get put on the car that Patrick Liddy was driving until the race, so he's going in there with pretty much an unknown, and got a little bit carried away. There is Patrick Liddy, because he's carried on with hardly any damage, it would appear, whereas poor Scott Huffaker he was able to get going again. No, he wasn't, was he? So he's out of the race.
He didn't seem to have any drive, Jeremy, but it was the 77 of Jake Walker. That car's not square. There's damage to the left rear. Huffaker now into the pit lane, so I think it's going to be day done for Walker and Keon Tendon, his teammate aboard the 77 for 47 Motorsports, and now Scott Huffaker in aboard his number 22. And this is not the way you want your day to go. The World Speed guys going to work, looking inside the cockpit, having a conversation. They've been on the radio for sure. Crew member looking around the back of the car. And you got time. They're doing the right thing. You've got time, and Scott will have been on the radio on the way in saying, I feel this, or it feels fine, whatever the case may be, but they're going to take a good look at it anyway before they decide to send him back out. Serious race car on a serious racetrack.
That's exactly right, and maybe it's something he can learn for tomorrow's race. He didn't qualify where he wanted to either. Back in was on the grid, 9th position on the grid. He would have expected more for himself from that qualifying session that was early this morning. So maybe he can get that car as good as it can be, get out there now, maybe learn something that'll help him in tomorrow's race.
The amount of time that they're taking, I mean, they they can, right? You got plenty of time to get it done. The full course laps here are quite lengthy, so you want to make sure that it's safe to send him back out. But the 2 qualifying sessions, he's in a better spot for tomorrow's race. He'll roll off 4th in the pro category and 5th overall, so perhaps a tire pressure adjustment or something between the qualifying sessions. He had a better car for Q2, but not the way he wanted race number 1 to go. The incident involving the 77, the 22, and the 72 are under review, and also understanding that the 86 and the 34 will have a penalty for a jump start. That will be a post-race time penalty of 10 seconds. So they already know that they are at a 10-second deficit. If they get past a car, they need to put 10 seconds on it, or the pass, technically doesn't happen, right? Because they'll be within that 10 seconds and they'll lose that position at the end of the race. So the 86 and the 34 with jump start penalties, and the incident but with the 72, the 77, and the 22 under review there at the laces of the boot. It's why we are under full course caution. Round number 5 of the 2024 Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America Championship. Brian Till and Jeremy Shaw with you. Hopefully the rain stays away, Jeremy, and we can get back to green flag racing here at the Glen shortly.
Yeah, let's hope so. And coincidentally, that pair of drivers who got the penalty for jumping the start, they started one behind the other. Rodrigo Vargas in car number 34 for TR3 Racing. He started in the 30th position. John Hirschberg, who's a veteran of this series for Forte Racing, just 2 positions behind him in car number 86. So we're curious that they should have both got a penalty. Both running in the LB Cup category. So for the least experienced drivers, among the least experienced drivers in the field, although both have been doing this series now for 2 or 3 years, so got plenty of time in these cars. They should know the rules of how to start the race.
Well, sometimes I think it's harder to be neat and tidy when you're at the back, right? You want to get the race going and you want a good jump and you don't want to get left behind and all of that. But the rules in IMSA competition are very strict. You need to stay in your column formation and not pass someone within your column before the start. You need to stay in columns until you're across the start-finish line. So it'd be interesting to see, did they jump? Were those the cars that we saw were a little anxious before the drop of the green when we saw that tails away shot? I'm not sure, but the officials certainly saw it, and when they reviewed it, came down and said, yeah, boys, there's been a problem here. So 10 seconds, we've got a long way to go in this race, and it could play a factor in your positions by the end of it, Jeremy, but you may be able to do something with it.
Yeah, they got 10 seconds to make up that time, but at least they're both in the same class, so that'll hinder them both equally. And coming into this week in the points, John Hirschberg in number 86 was actually leading the points in LB Cup coming in to this 5th race out of 12 for the season. He had 40 points to the 37 of David Starb, who swept the weekend last time out at World Tech Raceway Laguna Seca out on the west coast. So this will give Starb an opportunity, certainly, to perhaps grasp the points lead after today's race.
Field behind the Lamborghini Huracan safety car right now in Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America action. Hoping to get back to green flag here shortly. We're not that far away from the pit window opening and that mandatory pit stop that all of the competitors will have to take. They don't take fuel, they don't take tires. It's just coming to pit road to do a driver change in the 2-driver format. And if you're not doing the driver change, then it feels like an eternity just to be there on pit road. Now the lights out on the safety car. Danny Framal up front, as I said earlier, certainly knows how to win this race. Think about the season that he and Kyle Marcelli had last year. They won both rounds here, and they also won the championship, actually back-to-back pro championships with Marcelli in 2022 and 2023. Framal is on it as he comes into the restart zone in between 10 and 11, so he is hammered down. Once the green flag flies, we can go racing here at Watkins Glen. We are Framal with a good jump. Watch the front end of that Lamborghini dive under heavy braking, perhaps into the ABS just a little bit there into turn 1, and now the climbing S's to the back straight.
Yeah, and Danny Formal, 18 wins in this championship over the last few years. Just 3 behind the all-time best of Richard Antonucci, who has 21. So he's got an opportunity to break the tie with his former teammate Carl Marcelli, with whom he won those last 2 championships. But no wins this year yet for Danny Formal. That is a record he wants to set straight here this afternoon.
Understand that it didn't take the officials long. 72 penalty incident responsibility with the 77 and the 22. So for Patrick Liddy, he will have a stop and go penalty. He'll be having to come to pit road, go to the penalty box, do his stop and go, and a car slowing, coming out of the laces of the boot. Is that Cameron? See the colors on it. No, it's the number 4.
Kiko Porto, yeah. Even worse there for Ansa Motorsports, teammates to Cabarrou, but that's the championship leader is Kiko Porto and Nico Jumin. They qualified disappointing for them 7th, because Kiko Porto, having moved across to sports cars this year from the open wheel ranks, has been an absolute star in the first 4 rounds of the championship. He's had a couple of poles, he's had 3 wins out of the 4, and he's been the man. But unfortunately, it looks like that number 4 car has a problem.
Indeed he does, but as you said, the 30 still running strong for Ansa Motorsports. Loris Cabarrou behind the wheel of the 30, that black and orange livery down the front straightaway. He's got the bright orange 88 of Gianno Torino just in front, and man, Cabarrou really closes up under the brakes. He's got a fair amount of time in these cars. He's running Lamborghini Super Trofeo in Europe, as well as some French GT4 right now, so a lot of experience in GT cars as Patrick Liddy comes to the pit lane to serve his penalty.
Yeah, so that's the job done. Of course, that does not count as his mandatory stop. He'll have to come in again to do that, and he'll be sitting on pit road a lot longer next time around with that mandatory stop. So up at the front, still a good start there by Danny Formal, but Gianno Torino, they keep him honest, and Loris Cabarrou having by far his best run of the season thus far in North America here for Ansa Motorsports in 3rd position. JCG, John Capestri Betts holds down 4th position and leads the Pro-Am class just over Alex Premer. Right behind him is Andy Lee in kind of a 14, who was fastest yesterday in practice.
Talk about John Capestro de Betts. He and Tom Capizzi won both races here last year. No, they've had a disappointing season. Capestro de Betts 8th in the championship right now. Capizzi had to miss a round, but you look at this and it's like we expected better. I think they expected better. That team always driving to be at the front, and sure they were a little disappointed coming in here, but qualifying effort that John Capestro de Betts put in to put that car on pole in the Pro-Am class was a spectacular drive, and now he's going to get up there, see if they could take a victory again. I tell you, Jeremy, winning at Watkins Glen it's special. It doesn't matter what class that you're in, but if you can do it in a Lamborghini, it's just that much more special. Formal beginning to stretch away from Torino behind him.
Yeah, just a little bit there. 148.4 the lap time last round. The pole, whoops, that's Cabarrou running way off track there. That'll cost him a lot of time. There are the officials here are watching for drivers that exceed the track limits. He definitely exceeded the track limits, but he didn't gain an advantage. He went so far off wide there that he lost himself quite a bit of time to the 2 leaders, and now falling into the grips of John Capestro de Betts, who looks to the inside and makes that pass. Oh, problem here for Cabarrou.
Yeah, I wonder if he's got a braking issue, Jeremy, because in turn 1, when he went off, he turned in very early, which is why he went off at the exit of the corner. It's almost like he couldn't get the car slowed down or was uncomfortable with turning the wheel. And I think we just saw the same thing there into the bus stop. Capestro de Betts went by easily, and Cabarrou didn't even try to turn the wheel. It's like he felt like he couldn't slow down. There's the turn 1 incident. You see how early he turns in and carries massive speed. That's what puts him off the outside of the racetrack. And then a short distance later, he does essentially the same thing, but doesn't turn the wheel and goes straight off at the bus stop. So I don't know if he has a braking issue or what, but he is not at speed.
Yeah, clearly a problem there for Cabarrou. That's a shame. A really good qualifying run for the young Frenchman there, but he and Bryson Morris, 2 19-year-olds, very talented young men, both of them, but it looks like an early end to the race for that pair. Meanwhile, Danny Formal as again stretches his lead just a little bit more. He'll be faster again on this lap around, I fancy, as the Gianna Torino takes the opportunity to dick onto pit in car number 88 at a second position.
Yeah, they did that very quickly. The pit window had just been open for about 30 seconds, and they came by and said, hey, let's just go ahead and take it right now. And perhaps that's one of those things, Jeremy, that when you look at it, you go, you know what? Ernie's been better. Ernie Francis. Maybe he's thinking Ernie Francis has been better, you know, here this weekend. Let's get him in as soon as we can or whatever. When you're a two-driver format, you really have to kind of take the ego and set it aside and say, if the other driver's got to step on me this weekend, I want that other driver in the car for as long as they can be. So perhaps that's why we saw Torino come in. Obviously, he was doing a good job laying down lap times, but maybe he felt like Ernie Francis just had another little more step on him, a little bit more time in the car. Ooh.
Ooh?
That was ugly. So it looked like someone dove to their pit stop, to their pit box, and then it looks like they went to the wrong one. Had to pull out and then come down the lane and dive back in. That'll cost time. And if you're the other crew, you're wondering, why
who are you? Go away. Yes, we saw quite a few. Yeah, a lot of people on pit lane here. A lot of drivers, and mainly a lot of them in Pro-Am, where the AM driver started, the Pro will take over. One of the tricks, of course, is to get the Pro in the car as long as possible during his 50 minutes. So come in at the earliest opportunity, get the Pro behind the wheel, and see what he can do in the later stages of this race. By staying out now, as our race leader has done to come out to complete another lap, you run the kind of the risk. No, okay, fine. You run the risk, if there were to be a full cause caution, then the pits are closed. You cannot make your mandatory stop under caution, so he would have then been trapped behind the pace car until we went back to green. So a good move there by Danny Formal to bring that car into pit lane, and everybody else now. And we've now got the top 5 of the top 6 cars are all Pro-Am. They started with their Pro, so they're willing to take that gamble. Their Pro wants to go as long as they can before they hand over to the Am driver. For the Pro car here of Danny Formal, his co-driver is super fast as well with Ryan Norman, who won a race last season and was in line to win the races here as well before he was undone by the pit stop strategy, or the fact he was driving solo last year, which cost him 3 seconds on every pit stop. So he got wise today. He's got a co-driver for this year, and hopefully it'll work out better for him.
And I believe it was here at Watkins Glen when that 3 seconds was just, it just destroyed him. I think he finished second by about 2.5 seconds, which if you put a co-driver in the car and you didn't have to sit on pit lane, and I know that's a lot of ifs, right? Ifs and buts, but it's one of those deals where I think you're right. He looked at it and said, you know what, if I'm going to win races, I need to have a co-driver in the car, and I want to do it in the pro-pro combination.
And not a bad idea to have someone like Danny Formal, the 2-time series champion, as your teammate either, is it? So good moves all the way around there for Ryan Norman.
All right, things will settle down and get reorganized once all the cars have pitted, but you look at Glenn McGee being shown in the lead in the AM category right now, and there's another driver pairing who certainly knows how to get things done. He and Anthony McIntosh won the AM championship last year, and they were spectacular here at Watkins Glen as well. And it's one of those things, Jeremy, that when something's working, stay with it. Not only do they run here, but they also run in Europe and do some Italian GT and European Lamborghini Super Trofeo action. So when you got a teammate that you work well with, you stick with it and have fun.
Isn't that right? Yeah, that's one of the keys to success, isn't it? Having, particularly in dual driver races, having a teammate you get along with, you're in and out of the car. It's really, really important. If your driving style is similar as well, so much the better.
One trying to get back up to speed under pressure by the 14. We'll have to see how this settles down. I don't think the 14 has pitted yet, have they, Jeremy?
Yes. Well, you see, here's the thing. By making that pit stop, you lose a little bit more than a lap, because the number 14 car, no, has not stopped. That's running third position overall in the race. Ahead of him, though, is that's Danny Formal running ahead of him, isn't it? And right behind him, look, that bright orange car with the green, white and red stripes over the top, that is the number 88 car of Ernie Francis, who's taken over from John Torino, kind of radiated. He stopped 1 lap earlier, so up to speed. And Ernie Francis, a multiple-time Trans Am champion, making a move there on Andy Lee. Not for position, because he's a lap down to Lee at this stage, but he's got his eyes set on that car number 1 ahead of him.
Yeah, this is effectively the race for the lead that is coming back on to the short course here at Watkins Glen, headed to turn 10, the bright number 1. Ryan Norman behind the wheel, and then that bright orange number 88 just behind Ernie Francis Jr. trying to claw his way up to the number 1. After all the pit stops, this should be the fight for the lead, Jeremy, so we'll keep an eye on this. And Ernie Francis right now just wringing the neck of that Lamborghini. I should say it looks like a rodeo. He is riding that bull, isn't he? And you watch him in every corner. Pretty fast hands, being really aggressive. Saw him coming out of the laces of the boot last lap, drop a wheel at the exit, so he's really giving it everything he can right now.
Yeah, and that jockeying for position there cost Andy Lee some time in that pink car number 14. He's now leading the race, so these cars ahead of him are back on the lead lap. There is the pink car, that is Andy Lee. He leads the race overall. Last lap time though was a 151.9. He had been running in the 49, so it cost him 2 seconds on that last lap for Andy Lee, when those other cars, notably Don Competitor Dubets, came into the pit lane. Also number 70 car of Alex Prema, he was on pit lane as well. So Andy Lee is really the only one of the former leaders that has yet to make a stop. In second place right now, we're also running in Pro-Am. We've got 4 Pro-Ams running at the front now. It's Andy Lee at car number 14, Mark Miller at car number 41 who's in second place, and only a second or so behind him. Then a little bit of a gap back to Tyler Hoffman in car number 9, and then Luke Berkeley in car number 64. They're the 4 leaders. And then we saw Jockeybest Dubets and Alex Prema come onto pit lane, and behind them on the road is David Cardenas, who's doing a really nice job in that LB Cup leading car up into 7th position, but yet to come into the pits for his mandatory stop.
Understand the 99 will get a penalty, a post-race 10-second penalty for lining up in the wrong column at the start. So officials still getting an idea of what was going on at the start, so those penalties will be handed down. It was interesting when I watched the number 1, Ryan Norman, come off the toe of the boot, kind of get to the top of the hill on his way to the heel of the boot. I saw a puff of smoke, and I don't know if it was something that he ran over, Jeremy, or when he shifted gears, there was that puff of smoke, but I haven't seen it since then, so I'm going to kind of go with must have been something on the track. And perhaps that was much ado about nothing. And it's interesting, Ernie Francis looked like he closed down on Norman through that turn 8, 9, 10 combination on the way even down into turn 1. But Norman, with a monster drive off of turn 1, pulls another couple of car lengths. We'll have to see that same kind of ebb and flow this time as they head down into the boot. Norman wide at the top going in that time.
I just got a text, by the way, from David Starb, who's a former champion in this series. Apparently, I said it was David Starb that swept the weekend at Laguna in the LB Cup. And I said it wasn't. It was his brother Michael.
Yeah, it was his brother.
So, I must my slip there. But great to see you listening, David. And we need to get you back in one of these cars as well. You did one race earlier on this season, stepping in for another driver. But hopefully, you'll be back again before too long. There's number 72 car serving its. This is its mandatory stop, but of course, Patrick Nido will fall well down the order.
Well, it's nice to know that David wasn't going to take credit for the wins that his brother had. Looking at the 99, there'll be a penalty there, as we talked about. In the 55, will have a penalty as well. Actually, just a warning, not a penalty, for pit entry violation. I'm going to assume that was probably 4 wheels outside the white line and a kind of late entry into the pit lane. So officials keeping an eye on everything right now as the race is now beginning to settle down. The pit window is now closed and everybody should be back in order. And Norman leading in Pro. Andy Lee aboard the number 14 leading in Pro-Am. McIntosh, we talked about Glenn McGee and McIntosh aboard the 69 and how good they are. They're having a great run. And then Cardenas there in the 7, leading in LB Cup.
Yeah, and hopefully number 14 and 41 got into the pits before that time expired on that clock. You have to make your stop before 20 minutes to go in this race. They came in on that lap. They did the most possible time. They completed 13 laps before they brought their cars onto pit lane. And now we'll cycle back to this battle for the lead, coming down the hill into the toe of the boot. It's still the number 1 car that leads Ryan Norman, but Ernie Francis is right with him.
Yeah, he is. And now it's going to be a matter of making sure that you're being nice enough to this Hankook tire that it's going to last you to the end. And the way I was watching Ernie slide the car a little bit earlier, it's very warm at Watkins Glen, and you got to think, well, and the officials aren't going to like that either. Don't be surprised to see a warning for Ryan Norman about track limits, specifically turn 8, turn 10, and then certainly turn 1. The officials look for you going behind the curve at the exit, like Norman may have done that time by. So you're fighting the racetrack, Jeremy. You're fighting your competitors. And speaking of fights, you got a good one here. There's the 69 of McIntosh in that pink and blue entry, working his way through traffic.
Man, that's pretty fraught in the middle of the pack there, isn't it? And there's a lot of shuffling of positions going on here as the changeover of drivers has taken place.
Understand now that the 25 will get a penalty. That's the Alliance Racing entry for speeding in pit lane. So one of the things I saw in the driver briefing and talked to the race director, Todd Snyder, about was these guys need to clean up their driving. There have been too many mistakes, too many penalties, too much blocking, too much rubbing like that right there as they head through the climbing S's, or into them, I should say. And part of that is just making sure you're neat and tidy and following the rules on pit lane and at the start. So penalties being handed out big time here.
Yeah, and look, this is a fraught battle. I mean, look, Anthony McIntosh, in car number 69, he talked about him a few moments ago. He kind of worked his way through a pack of these cars, and he's now up into 3rd position overall in this race. He's a long way behind the 2 leaders. We've all of a sudden got everything thinned right down to just those 2 running way out front, Ryan Norman and Ernie Francis, who do not yet lead the motor race, by the way, because they still haven't completed their 14th lap. And the number 14 and 41 that have now made their pit stop, they have already completed that lap, so it'll be not until this time around that these 2 will take over the lead of the race.
Ryan Norman looking in his mirrors, you could tell he feinted a little block there coming up into turn 9, and Ernie Francis beginning to put the pressure on. And it's interesting, Danny Formal, Ryan Norman, Kyle Marcelli, who is not running here in Lamborghini Super Trofeo this season, they're the only 3 drivers to win in the pro class last year. And now that Norman and Formal are together, they are winless on the season, and I think that is somewhat surprising. Ernie Francis, Gianno Torino sits 2nd in the championship right now. They won the 2nd race of the season at Sebring, and I tell you, right now Ryan Norman has his hands full, as does the 46. Tom Capizzi running 5th in Pro-Am, and he is under attack.
This is, and that's the number 20 car there, I think, the distinctive gold car. Oh, excuse me, 21 car, Nico Riga, who's working his way through a pack of cars there. I think he's up now into maybe the 4th or 5th position in Pro-Am. So after those pit stops for Capizzi, we've got Ryan Norman and Ernie Francis way out front. Slade Stewart has taken over the pink unicorn car, number 14 from Andy Lee. He runs in 3rd position. What are we watching here? Ooh, ouch.
And that is why Tom Capizzi, that's why he is slowed down. I would imagine, Jeremy, that the right front suspension is a bit deranged, and the toe or the angle of the front tires is not as it should be. I'm going to guess it's not as it was when he went out on the racetrack. Saw him, and it looked like he was losing pace rapidly, and now I know why.
Yeah, really. Sharps. So all sorts of shuffling here, but Ryan Norman, he's got his hands full, hasn't he? Last lap time around for him was 150.0. The number 1 car, the early stage of the race, was doing 48s with Danny Formal at the wheel, so he's struggling a little bit here. I think he's Ryan Norman, and using every inch of the racetrack and a little bit more to keep that number 88 car behind him. And Ernie Francis, I was chatting with him earlier this morning, and he was saying, look, the team TR3 Racing, with whom he runs, had a really good test here a few years ago. They were able to try a lot of things in terms of development on the car for the drivers. He's sharing this car, of course, with Gianno Torino, who's got a fair amount of experience. This is his third year in this series, but it's brand new for Ernie Francis. He's used to high horsepower cars, but this car is very different to anything he's driven before. He learned a lot. He will start tomorrow's race from the pole position. So I'm sure at this stage in the race right now, Ernie, yes, he wants to win. He's a racing driver, and he's a very accomplished racing driver. He's won in all sorts of different sorts of cars over the last several years. But at this stage right now, he'll, I think, settle for second place, knowing that he goes into tomorrow's race as the favourite, starting from the pole position.
Well, it's really interesting watching right now. Ryan Norman high on the way into the laces of the boot again, and that closes Ernie Francis right back up. But I'm wondering about the downforce settings on these cars. They're not, oh, and I think that was a little push and shove right there by Francis saying, I am right here. Ernie Francis is the faster car on this end of the racetrack. There is absolutely no doubt. And the saving grace for Ryan Norman is his run out of turn one. He pulls several car links in that section of the racetrack. And I'm just wondering, is it a handful in here because there's less downforce? And is it faster down the straightaway because there's less downforce?
Yeah, good point. I mean, that's the trade-off you run here at Watkins Glen. Do you want downforce or do you want straight-line speed? And by the way, a consequential pit stop there for Anthony McIntosh in car number 69. I think it was a penalty for his pit stop was too short by more than 1 second. As you were talking about a little while ago, the penalty for that, if it's less than 1 second by which you're short, it's relatively not a problem. If it's more than a second, it is a big problem. Drive-through penalty, that has dropped the AM leaders a long, long way down the order. As they come across the line to complete that 50, and Anthony McIntosh was still in third position in the AM class. It's Cole Kleck who leads now for Alliance Racing in car number 28. He took over after a good first stint by Al Murray the fourth.
You see, once again, Ryan Norman pulls some distance, and from the exit of the bus stop, Ernie Francis is going to get it all back, and last time he got it all back by the time they got to the toe of the boot. Car number 8, car number 28, 69 and 70, all more than 1 second short on the pit stop. Drive-through penalty for all of those. That's Nick Persing, who runs second in Pro-Am, one of those. That is the number 8, and that is going to be painful there. And here comes Ernie Francis. He's gotten a couple of the car links back, and I expect to see him get a couple more by the time they get back to the front straightaway, Jeremy. And then this is that ebb and flow that we've seen lap after lap.
Yeah, it looks like maybe there's a little bit of traffic ahead there as well. That might possibly play into his favour for Ernie Francis as a pursuing driver. It'll be the number 1 car that comes across that traffic first. He's got to find his way past, and perhaps number 88 can take advantage of that. We now want just over 11 minutes remaining, so it'll be another half dozen laps. So plenty of time here for Ernie Francis to try and make a move on Ryan Norman, and more time for Ryan Norman to get pretty nervous.
Yeah, as you said, when you're the tip of the spear, you're going to get to the traffic first, and a lot of times that allows the trailing car to do something with it, and we'll have to wait and see here what Ryan Norman can do. He doesn't want to have to check up, breathe off of the throttle at all, because if he does, that's going to give Francis the run, and that is exactly what happened. He had to back up just a little bit. Here comes Ernie Francis, the run to the bus stop. Norman's going to make him look to the high side. Oh, wow. That was close, and Ernie Francis now, Jeremy, close enough to potentially get something done when they get down to the toe of the boot.
Yeah, indeed, and that was a pretty scary move back across there to take the racing line into the chicane by Ryan Norman. I think he just about get away with it. He wasn't really blocking. He was just moving across to take the line. A big slide, though, under braking for turn 6. The number 8 car you just talked about, Nick Persing, has dropped out of 4th place overall, second in Pro-Am, serving that penalty. That moves Nico Rieger now up into 2nd place for TPC Racing, car number 21, in the Pro-Am class, 4th overall, just ahead of Joel Miller for 47 Motorsports in car number 66.
Ryan Norman leads at Watkins Glen, round 5 of the 2024 Lamborghini Super Trofeo North American Championship, but Ernie Francis not letting him get away, and now he's got to work with traffic. Ryan Norman gets checked up big time. Ernie Francis tries to get the run. Hard to pass in here. One more time, Ryan Norman holds him off. The question is, can he hold him off for another 9 minutes and 20 seconds?
Yeah, great motor race this is turning out to be. Absolutely is. This is 18 laps completed then by the two leaders. 50.8 last time around for our race leader. Previous couple of laps, or previous 3 laps, he was down in the 49. The 49.4 on the previous lap for Ryan Norman, working his way through those cars. He's pulled up a little bit of gap though, even with that over Ernie Francis, but he's still, you wouldn't say he's comfortable right now, that's for sure.
And this is where Ryan Norman shines. Look at the gap build. There's a yellow flag out by the corner worker there, indicating there's a problem between, have we gone full course caution? There are 2 yellows out in a row. No flag there, and I don't, there's a car in the gravel. Driver's right there in the bus stop. Hasn't actually made it to the gravel, but did make contact with the wall. That looks to be the number 7.
Yes.
I think it is.
It's Alex Lee who's taken over that car from Andrew Cardenas, who was leading the LB Cup class through the early stages. The youngster from Colombia handing over to the older Brazilian. It looks like Alex Lee has put that car off the road. Are we going to have to go full course?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
We are, Jeremy, and this changes everything. Safety workers there, and the door pops open, and for Alexander Lima, this is not the way he wanted to end this race. He was 5th here last year in race number 1 in the AM category with Pierre Klein-Nubing. Problems here, though. He and David Cardenas had a good run going. The 19-year-old Cardenas from Colombia had a good run going early on. F4 experience there, and this is going to change everything. I would think, Jeremy, it looks like this car can roll, and that means the cleanup would be relatively quickly. We may get a 2 or 3 lap shootout to the end. The good thing for Ryan Norman is he can accelerate aggressively through turn 11 to his favorite turn, turn number 1, and perhaps build some space. But this is going to allow all these competitors to cool these hand-cooked tires a little bit. It's going to be a different Lamborghini when we go back to green.
Yeah, it is, and there's several guys who are happy to see this yellow, and there's several that are not. I think the guys that will be happy, probably Ryan Norman, give himself a bit of a breather, but certainly it's bad news for Slade Stewart, who's doing an excellent job in 3rd position, leading Pro-Am very comfortably over Nico Riga. But the youngster Nico Riga from Houston, Texas, he's got a lot more experience than Slade Stewart. Slade Stewart himself, of course, is a former LB Cup champion just a couple of years ago, and he's had some really good results. He was doing a super job there in 3rd position, really not losing out that much to the 2 leaders, but having Nico Riga behind him, I think that's going to be a bit of a headache for Slade Stewart. Good news also, though, for Joel Miller, who's right behind Nico Riga, and then particularly Jaron Blekemolen, who's taken over the number 54 car from Tim Pappas, who did a nice job again in the early stint. He's going to be lurking right there in 6th position in car number 54. So we've got 2 pro cars out front, then 6 Pro-Ams behind Blekemolen and Garrett Adams in car number 64, and Paul Nemshoff in car number 41. Then it's the AM leader, Dominic Starkweather, in car number 47 for the Precision Performance Motorsports team. He's doing a nice job in 9th position, ahead of 3 more Pro-Ams. Then in 2nd place his AM is Anthony Bullock in car number 12 for One Motorsports. Then Ashton Harrison, another former LB Cup champion, and then Anthony McIntosh, having served that drive-through penalty, that is going to bring him right back into contention, running in 15th overall. In the LB Cup class, it's Mark Drummond, who skipped the last 2 races at WeatherTech Raceway in Laguna Seca after winning the opening round at Sebring back in March. He leads in LB Cup in 19th position in car number 02, just ahead of Nick Croat for One Motorsports in car number 57.
Well, other bad news for Slade Stewart, there is going to be a penalty for a short pit stop. It's just a time penalty, and it's going to equate to a little more than half a second, but that just, anybody that has a post-race time penalty did not want to see this yellow, because it's brought everyone back together and brings all those cars closer to you. So you never want to end up with a post-race penalty when the field gets gathered up towards the end of the race under full course caution, especially if it ends under caution. That's when it is excruciatingly painful. But hopefully we'll get back to green here shortly. It looked to me like the car was gone from over at the bus stop, but the light's still on the Lamborghini Huracan safety car.
Yeah, we're coming up to turn 8, so they need to go off pretty quickly if we're going to go back to green this time around. Big long train of cars. What a glorious sight that is. All these multicolored Lamborghinis. There is that bright pink car, the pink unicorn of Slade Stewart. That car, the delivery of that car, the design of that car with the pink unicorn, that put that down to his young daughter. Family, very much a family affair here for the Stewarts in this championship, and he's a real character, and great to see him running very, very well again today, running in 3rd position overall. So he's got several lap cars ahead of him. That's not going to be good news for him either, but he's got a pack of hungry Lamborghini drivers behind him.
Well, and my eyes did deceive me. We didn't have a wide enough shot when we followed the field through there the last time, because the stricken number 7 of Lima just now going on the trailer. So I don't know, Jeremy, this could very well end under full course caution. So we'll have to wait and see, but things not looking well. And again, for anybody with a post-race time penalty, this is the last thing in the world you want to see. Think about the difference here. Anybody within 10 seconds of you is going to be in front of you in the final standings if we don't get back to green, for all of those drivers who had 10-second penalties. And even those like Slade Stewart and Andy Lee who have just a half-second penalty, it's going to be one of those things that it could cost them a position easily if the other car behind you is right up underneath your rear wing. And if I'm your competition and I know you have any kind of a time penalty towards the end of the race, I'm going to be as close to your rear wing when we cross the finish line as I possibly can.
Yeah, true that. But if you, half a second, that's about at the speeds they're going. That's around about what would be the differential between two cars out on the racetrack. So if he can juggle himself here, he might get away with it. Because I think at best we're going to have 1 lap to go as a shootout, if we can get that car out of the way, and that's going to have to happen pretty soon. Otherwise, as you say, we're likely to finish under caution, which would be a big anticlimax of what has been, after a slow start, a tremendous race.
Under full course caution at Watkins Glen and Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America action. It's Ryan Norman who leads overall and in the pro category. He and Ernie Francis have had a whale of a battle until this late race full course caution. Slade Stewart aboard the number 14 leads in the Pro-Am category, and that is a great run for that team, Flying Lizard Motorsport. They took a victory earlier in the year, and he and Andy Lee sit second in the championship. They won at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in round number 1. They're going to see if they can take another victory here. Dominic Starkweather aboard the number 47 from Precision Performance, leading right now in the AM category, and Mark Brumman in LB Cup. Those are the 4 leaders, and we were told 2 to go the last time by, so I don't have high hopes, Jeremy, that we're going to see another green flag.
No, I mean, there's just a minute remaining on the clock now. Look, if that car should be out of the way inside another minute or so. If race control can get creative here, we might be able to get the car out of the way. Oh, it's going to go the way around. No, it's going to go around into the cutoff, isn't it? Into the runoff area. But no, I think it's too late now. This race for sure is going to finish under yellow.
Yeah, light's still on the Lamborghini Huracan safety car. They will lead the field by 1 more time. And I believe we should see the white flag. Yep. And disappointing for some of the drivers in the field right now, Jeremy, and for others, as you said, perhaps a little sigh of relief. Preston Buckley with the white flag waves it there for the field as they come under, and 1 more trip around this legendary racetrack, and round number 5 will be in the books. The good news is we get to do it all again tomorrow, because Lamborghini Super Trofeo round number 6 on the season comes at you then. It'll be the same type of action that we saw, hopefully without the waving yellow flags as well, Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because we just want to see green flag racing.
I tell you, I'm not sure.
That was tremendous.
I'm not sure how much Hankook tire Ernie Francis had left, or Ryan Norman. 2 or 3 laps in a row, Jeremy. Ryan Norman with that run down into the laces of the boot, it's like he couldn't get the car to turn in or it was going to get real loose, and that left him with a wide entry that you kind of pay me now or you pay me later. That wide entry got him out to areas of the racetrack where he didn't have a lot of grip in the car, really got loose on entry, and it allowed Ernie Francis to really close up. Couldn't quite do anything with it as they headed down to the laces of the boot. Norman defended a couple of times that Francis, had a pretty good run, but both of those guys, I think they used up everything that they had. It would have been an interesting final couple of laps for the shootout there.
It would. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, wasn't. Shame. But still, I mean, it's some tremendous performances. A really good run by Slade Stewart and Andy Lee. What looked like it might have been bad news for them is going to work out just fine. I think that wasn't a car that had a penalty, was it, number 14? Oh, yes, it was, wasn't it? Was that the car that had a short pit stop? Yes, it was, but half a second they're going to have added to their time. So he's going to have to get a little bit creative here. I think he's probably going to lose the win perhaps to Nico Rieger. And if Joel Miller can stay close enough, then maybe he could sneak up into second position. But it's for Ryan Norman and Danny Formal, this has been longer than they had anticipated to wait for that first win of the season, like car number one, defending series champion.
So, Jeremy, what do? I understand Slade Stewart has a penalty. Mark Brumman has a 1.5 second penalty for a short pit stop. He's the leader in LB Cup. Do you back up right here and try to get a gap between you and the car in front and then charge through the final corner to build that gap to the car that's behind you?
There's not time for that. You imagine.
Do you know what I mean, though? I mean,
with 50 yards to go, perhaps. Yes.
Slade Stewart needs a half a second. Mark Brumman may be in a little more difficult shot, and look at that.
Oh yeah, look, as long as they don't overtake him, then they're okay. They can pull alongside both of those second and third place cars in the Pro-Am class. Are going to pull sort of alongside, I think.
And that's exactly what Nico Rieger did. Yeah. But that's interesting. That's exactly what they did to try to get that. And indeed, when you look at it, as they cross the line, Slade Stewart drops to fourth in Pro-Am. Rieger, Miller, Bleekemolen is the top three, and it all happened right there at the line.
It did. So really unfortunate there for Slade Stewart. If it had gone back to green, I fancy he would have been really struggling to keep those guys behind him. But it's still been an excellent run by he and Andy Lee, who did a great job in the early stages, actually led 3 laps of this race as well. But hats off here to Ryan Norman. He was under intense pressure there all the way through his entire stint, because he made his pit stop 1 lap after the number 88 car in that leading car number 1. And from the moment he was back out on the racetrack, the number 88 car, Verdi Francis, was filling his rear-view mirrors. So excellent job there by Ryan Norman. It's his 3rd win in the category. Both of those wins, of course, came last year, and a little bit of recompense for him after the heartbreak from here at Watkins Glen last year, where he lost out to his teammates.
And you look back in LB Cup, Nick Grote takes the victory there. Look at this gamesmanship at the line now. My question is, are they in front of him? And can Slade not go because of the 55 car that's down on the outside? Did that kind of check his run-up?
He was going to lose that place in any case. I mean, he could have tried to leave a gap and then sort of jump forward, but who was it? What was the car ahead of him?
55.
The first lap car was 55, was it? Yeah, okay. So that was Andrew Strobert there, who's, of course, doesn't have the experience. He was a couple of laps down, actually. Doesn't have the experience of the other guys, but he needs to learn to keep up the cars ahead of him. Yeah, it wasn't Strobert's fault. You can't blame him for that. It was just the way the circumstances panned out, and with that short stop. Look, Slade Stewart, he has the readout on his dash. He knows how long it takes him to get from his pit stall to the pit exit, and he mistimed it, and unfortunately it's come back to bite him.
Unofficial results right there. Danny Formal, Ryan Norman, they are no longer winless on the season, so they take their first win of the season. That's going to help them in their championship. Ernie Francis, what a drive he put in to try to wrest that position away. We saw the gamesmanship there at the end, and we talked about it. Late race full course cautions when you've got time penalties are painful. McIntosh and McGee aboard the 69. They'll take the victory in AM. And then Grote, taking advantage of that penalty that we saw for Mark Brumman, hands him his first victory of the season. Looking through the rest of the field, problems there for Lima and Cardenas. We saw that late race problem in the bus stop. That's what brought out the final full course caution. And that is a look through your 38-car field.
Phew. Look, quite a few problems for the championship favourites in this race, but it's always cool to see new winners, isn't it? We've got 4 different winners newly on the top of the victory rostrum after this 5th round of the championship today. It's Ryan Norman overall, along with Danny Formal. In the Pro-Am class, it's Nico Riga and Cheyenne Chandrasoma. In the AM category, here's Dominic Starkweather winning his first time of the season, and Nick Grote gets his first win for One Motorsports in LB Cup as well.
Well, round number 5 of the 2024 Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America Championship. Look at Danny Formal. Look at Danny Formal. It is over, but is it over? We'll let you know when we come back for round 6 tomorrow, because timing and scoring says the finish is under review. So we'll keep track of that and let you know what happens here when we come back for round number 6 tomorrow. Great stuff, Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America action. This is what we always see. 38 Raging Bulls on the racetrack. We'll be back tomorrow. For Jeremy Shaw, I'm Brian Till. We'll see you then.